Hi, and welcome to my second episode of Aerospace Talk with Mason. In this week's episode, we're going to start it off with talking about my camp last week at the University of North Dakota. It was a great time, but the first thing we did there was have a lecture by this guy, Ken Polovitz, and he's the Assistant Dean of Student Services. And what he talked about was five building blocks of being being a pilot to get that pilot spot. The first block was building a foundation, and that's what we were doing there at that campus to start building that foundation, getting an idea of what we're getting ourselves into. And then second thing he talked about, or the second block, is getting a hands-on experience. In that second, or in building, getting that hands-on, doing simulators, actually flying the plane, getting those hours. That's the thing. And then the third thing he talked about was getting your medical. And when he meant by passing it and making sure you're suitable to fly and it's the right job for you. The fourth thing he talked about was getting your experience and reaching that magical number of 1,000 hours. And then the fifth thing he talked about was being a people person, building up relationships, because you're going to need to talk to your co-pilot and all other pilots, being able to talk to air traffic control and all that stuff. Then we'll talk about our first day of camp real quick. First thing we did simulators. I got to do the simulator for roughly 45 minutes. We did the Cessna 172 simulators that they have there. And then after that, we got a tour of the John Odegaard School of Aviation. This is a picture of John Odegaard, and the first building was the Odegaard building, and he was the founder of the aerospace school. And the first thing, and there's two things that are in that Odegaard building other than like classrooms, and that is the altitude chamber. And the altitude chamber is discovering what it feels like to be hypoxic. And what it means to be hypoxic is you're having hypoxia, and what that means, you are not getting enough oxygen to the brain. So you're not able to think right and think normal. And another thing is the disorientation chamber. This little plane will spin around, and it's like you're doing your instrument, but you might feel like you're doing a climb, but you're really straight and level, or you feel like you're straight and level, and you're turning. And that's not good. So this is telling you that you need to trust your instruments and not your mind, because your mind will be telling you one thing, but you're really doing this other thing. And that's when people start to discover motion sickness and all that stuff. But these are the things that you'll be doing in aviation or aerospace, aviation sociology, so all that stuff. And you'll be doing these two things in the class, the altitude chamber and the disorientation chamber. The next building that we went to, that's a picture of the sheet that people are working on during during the altitude chamber. And you might not be able to see it well, but there's like questions like 4 + 4, which you think you'd be able to do very easily, but when you're in the altitude chamber, it's pretty hard to do because your brain can't function right. But the next thing we're doing is talking about the Clifford Hall, who was the dean at the time that Odegaard wanted to start the aerospace program. This is across the big skywalk to the Clifford Hall and the Ryan Hall. The Ryan Hall is the hall that you are in for all of your simulators. So in the Ryan Hall, There's the 360. Wait, no, and this is in the Clifford Hall. My bad. But in the Clifford Hall, they have the 360 tower, uh, air traffic control tower simulator. So that's what you see there. And in the Ryan Hall, they have all of the simulators, and this is their ERJ 200 simulator, which is in their airlines class that they'll be taking to help them get their commercial license. So yeah, and then the third the fourth building, my bad, is the Robin, and the Robin were big name people into the UND. They donated a lot of money to university to the University of North Dakota's Aerospace program. So they got this very nice and new building for them. And in the building, they have the UND Aerospace Legacy Wall, which this is a picture of, and right there, the third section down is the Robin couple. So they're, like I said, they're big name people in the University of North Dakota Aerospace. Then we got a tour of the Grand Forks Airport and the UND operations side of it. So this is their maintenance hangar. This is where all they do. They have over 102 planes at the University of North Dakota, and all of them are being flown every day. But when they aren't flying right, you will of course need to take them to you'll need to take them to the maintenance hangar. So that's the only picture that I have. But day two, we got our VFR flight, if weather was good, which it was, and we got a career lecture by the same guy. He talked about what different career options are there in the world of aviation, and he also, in one of the things he told us, is there's two things that really pointed out to me. Is he said have a plan B. Aerospace programs don't really look. I mean, airlines don't really. They want you to be more experienced than just aviation. Because if you don't pass the third block, which is the medical, what are you going to fall back on? So you got to have a fallback plan. And then the second thing that what really pointed out to me, or kind of just jumped out at me, was military over choosing. He was talking about military for a little bit, and he just said, choose it. Most people should just go straight into the airlines, but if you want to go into the military, go ahead. But he said airlines over military because of one thing, and that is time. With the military, you have 2 years. You have a 10-year commitment once you sign up to be a pilot. 10 years in 2 of those years you're training. So only 8 of the years you're actually flying. So let's say you graduate at 23, 24. So let's say 23 for now. So you graduate at 23, you sign the dotted line saying, yeah, I'll be a pilot. And you sign up and everything. You go through ROTC. You go right out of college, yeah, I'm going to be a pilot. They send you off to your training, and that's 2 years. So you're at 25. And then you get all the way to 33. You go sign up to fly with an airline. You're getting those 4 o'clock in the morning shifts, those 3 o'clock in the morning flights, and your body's not going to be able to handle it like you are 23, like you were when you were 23. So that's going to be a thing that it's your personal opinion. And then after that lecture, we had an unmanned aircraft lecture, just mostly telling us what it's like, and it sounds pretty cool. That's what I plan on doing my second major. I'm gonna hopefully major in commercial aviation and unmanned aircraft, so I can, you know, understand those things better. And then let's go to day 3. Um, First, we started off the day with uh, a tour of uh, their helicopter hangars because we didn't get to do that on our tour of the flight operations. And this is one of my buddies, Alex. He said he'll be watching this video, so shout out to you, Alex, uh, for photobombing me. And I also have another buddy in the background behind him, Wade. So shout out to you too. And then after that, we did our IFR flying through the clouds. Is perfect weather for IFR flying, which is instrument flying. So if you didn't know that, and it was crappy weather, but it was perfect weather for this type of flying, and it was great. Uh, really, really great day. And then after that, um, we finished off our career lecture with the assistant dean, and then we had our night flight intro, which, and day 4 we had our, and then now we're going to day 4. Day 4 we started off the day with an altitude chamber intro. We did not get to do it necessarily, and then we had a lecture again from point A to point B, talking about what different ways you can get from point A, which we're at now, to point B, being an airline pilot. And one thing they talked about is a cadet program, which airlines are coming in trying to get you, and coming in saying, "Hey, we'll hire you," and they hire you actually, and they keep track of your progress and your training and making sure you're staying up to date. And then when you graduate and you're a CFI for so long and get those 1,000 hours, you'll go off to the airlines. And then we did our cross country flight. Here's a picture right outside of the Grand Forks Airport on the runway. Of course, I'm in the back seat during all these flights, pictures. We flew to Valley Springs, North Dakota, I'm pretty sure. And this is a wood bridge that was right outside of Valley Springs, and it was a pretty cool wood bridge. It's train goes over it and right outside the runway, which is kind of scary because it was kind of weird how low we had to be. It almost felt like we were about to clip the houses below us. Then we did our night flight. We stayed at the airport, had lunch and everything, and then our night flight. This is the sunset, just beautiful day. And when I flew back, we got to do something pretty cool, and we hit 10,355 feet, which I think is pretty cool to do in a little Cessna plane. Even though I thought it was a lower ceiling height, so it seemed even cooler, but it's got a higher one, so kind of disappointed about that. But it was still a very cool thing to do. It was our instructor's first time ever doing that. And then we'll talk about day 5, probably the most boring out of the days. We did our air traffic control intro. We did air traffic control simulators, and then we got some tips about college, applying and all that stuff. And then we got to the exciting part of the day, watching a movie, Top Gun. Very good movie. I thought we'd watch a different movie like Sully or Airplane, Aviator, something different, because everybody's watched Top Gun that wants to be a pilot. But I do like that movie, and it was a very good week. Now we're going to get to this week's plane of the week. Oh, I forgot to tell you, there's a surprise coming up soon, so you'll have to keep watching for that. This week's plane of the week is the P51 Mustang. It is a fighter plane that was built in the U.S. Its manufacturer was North American Aviation. Its first flight was the 26th of October in 1940. It was introduced January in 1942 by the Royal Air Force. It was retired from military use in 1984. It was used by the U.S. Army Air Corps, Royal Air Force, Chinese Nationalist Air Force. There was more than 15,000 made. It costs right now 2 million to 4 million, but back in 1945 it only cost $50,000 or roughly $51,000. So that it is oh it is really grew in how much it's worth. I think it's just because it's the P51 Mustang. Everyone knows this plane. Then let's talk about the characteristics of this plane a little bit. Its length is 32 feet 3 inches. Its wingspan is 37 feet. Its height is 13 feet and 4.5 inches. Its empty weight is 7,635 pounds. Max takeoff weight is 12,100 pounds. Now let's talk about its performance. Its max speed is 440 miles per hour. Its cruise speed is 362 miles per hour. Its range is 1,650 miles, and in nautical miles it's 1,434 nautical miles. Surface ceiling is 41,900 feet, and what I talked about this last week, but its surface ceiling means its max density altitude. I didn't know what I said last week's video, but I think I was wrong on that, so I'm sorry for that. Its rate of climb is 3,200 feet per minute, and let's talk about its guns. It has 6 12.7 millimeter AN M2 machine guns, or 6 or 10 5-inch T4 HVAR rockets, and it can hold a 1,000-pound bomb. Now, you guys are in for the surprise. We have a plane of the week part 2. It's the Cessna 172. This is the plane that I flew when we were at North Dakota. This is not the exact plane, I should say. Ours were different. It's the same thing, but just had like UND stuff all over it. I'm just going to give you a little bit of information about it. Its wingspan is 36 feet 1 inch. Its cruise speed is 122 knots, and its service ceiling is 3,500 feet. So it's a small airplane, so all those numbers are understandable. I loved flying this plane, but a fun fact about UND, they're switching from the 172s to Cessna 172s to the Piper Archers, and by the time I'm at the college, they'll all be Piper Archers instead of Cessna 172s. And now I told you that I would do the pilot of the month, and I'm going to keep up on that promise. This is Benjamin O. Davis Jr. He was the first African American Air Force general. He was also a part of the Red Tails in World War II. And if you don't know about the Red Tails, they are the first African American pilots to fly for the Air Corps. And they never had one plane crash down. They were escort planes for bombers, and they never had one crash. But Benjamin O. Davis Jr. flew 60 combat missions. He was a part of the making of the U.S. Air Force, and he commanded a fighter wing in the Korean War. It's a little bit about Benjamin O. Davis Jr. And now it's time for this week's fun facts. First fun fact is Atlanta's airport is the busiest commercial airport in the world. Second fun fact about this this second fun fact this week is JFK Airport in New York was originally called Idlewild Wild Airport earlier, before it was named JFK Airport. And the final fun fact of the week is 747. The Boeing 747 has flown more than 5.6 billion people, which is an equivalent to 80% of the world's population. Now, thank you for watching this video. I'm the host, Mason Gravitt, and I hope you subscribe and like all my videos. Go check out my last week's video if you haven't checked it out already. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later.